Okay, we're back to our discussion period. And does anybody want to speak first? Patrick.
Do we have that other handheld mic, or?
The other one is not a handheld. It's got a 4-wire.
I just wanted to tell a little story about serendipity and culture, and maybe how God works in the background and we don't even realize it. A bunch of friends or people that have become friends and myself go over to a brew pub in Fullerton called Bootleggers every Friday in the afternoon, and there's 2 or 3 professors who teach at Hope University in Fullerton, which is a Christian college right across the street from Cal State Fullerton, who teach Old Testament with the fellows that I've met. And one of them, a fellow by the name of, I'll just call him Kip, and we were talking, and I just asked him over a beer what classes he was teaching this semester. And he said, oh, I'm teaching this and this. And one of his other classes he mentioned was, oh, and I'm teaching modern religious movements. So I said to him, I said, well, gosh, Kip, I'd love to talk to your class about the Urantia book. Just come in as a visiting guest lecturer. And we exchanged emails and phone, and this is something I told Kermit the other day when I called him on the phone. And so on Tuesday, this is like a junior, senior seminar, maybe 6 or 8 students at the most. And I gave them some research to do beforehand, at least read the Urantia book wiki page and go to the Urantia Book Foundation and Fellowship websites so that they would get at least a brief understanding of where I was coming from. And I brought in a couple satchels of Urantia book, the history of the Urantia book Revelation by Sprunger and what? Oh, and Larry Mullins. Yeah, I brought that one in. And the Spanish translation, which I think Dick Prince worked on years ago. And I don't know what came of that talk. I gave them a little bit of background about who I was and why I was involved and interested in this. And I got some interesting questions back. But I think, and what impressed me the most and why I'm mentioning it now, is that it's these kinds of things sometimes that God may be doing in the background, that the Spirit of truth may be at work, the midwayers, or whatever else it is, that causes things to happen that you don't know anything, because the acts are ours, the consequences are God's. We don't know whether or not any of those 6 or 7 students may pick up the book, may not. I could tell at least 1 or 2 of them eyes were like this. And the most difficult question that I got was about a little statement that one of them had read probably before from, I believe, paper 109, where they talked about the Trinity of Trinities. And she said, well, what's the Trinity of Trinities? And I said, well, you'd have to ask me probably one of the most difficult questions about the theology, and metaphysics that's spoken about in the Urantia book. But I said, I'll get back to you, and I'll send the answer to your professor, and he can pass that along to you if you're interested still. But it's that notion of, I don't know whether or not that was a seed that is going to take root or not. But nonetheless, I think that kind of thing that we talk about socialization and what can we do, we can sometimes do more as individuals as we pass by sometimes than necessarily doing a planned event in which how many people do we have today? 20, 25? Yeah. But you know, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Urantia book readers in Southern California, but they're not here socializing at this event. They might be out doing other things, and that might be, you know, what we're talking about or part of it.
Comments on what Patrick just said? Well, you can get another chance later.
Yeah, I can piggyback on that, and I'd also, do I need this? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see, all right. So what was it that was in the conversation today that brought that up for you, since I came in late, sorry?
Part of it was to me, it was just the idea of serendipity, the idea of just, it's not something that you necessarily plan in your life, but one thing may lead to another thing, which may lead to another thing, and eventually something else might happen, and that might affect somebody else's life, or it may not. But oftentimes those kinds of things are not planned out in our minds. It's not something I chose to do. It just happened, and so I followed my intuition.
And I'm going to follow that up by simply saying this. I really believe that the divine works 24/7. The Spirit works 24/7. There is no rest for God and His administration or us when we have our mind open to it. And I think that we all touch people's lives every day, even with a little smile. We have no idea how we're going to change lives. But I just did a little project the other day. It was in LA. I got a call from a gentleman in Chicago. Says, I'm coming out to California. Can you meet me Wednesday at the Redberry Hotel downtown LA? I said, absolutely. I said, who is this and what is that you want me to do when we get there? So as it turns out, he's a young producer-director, and he's Filipino, and he was doing a shoot for an Italian singing group, okay? And the bottom line of the story is that three things happened during the shoot. One, we went to the hotel. I met him and his friend, who was also Filipino. They wanted me to play the part of Berlusconi, President Berlusconi of Italy, if anybody knows him, who is one of the worst womanizers ever and doesn't care what the press thinks about what he's doing. He's the president. He can do whatever he wants. But in this day, we had a girl came in, this young girl, into the room where they have, every room has a turntable, an LP. She's so young, she looked at it and said, what is that? And we said, well, that's an old record player. She goes, well, what do you put on there? And in the room, they had a ton of LPs to choose from. She picks one, and we pull it out, and we show her, and she goes, that's the biggest disc I've ever seen, thinking it's for a computer, right? So she picks out, of all things, a Frank Sinatra record, okay? So this is about a tryst. She couldn't have picked a better record, so we play it. Before long, the Italian singers come in. One of the Italian singers walks in, and he looks just like Frank who? Thank you very much. So here we're listening to Frank. He walks in, he looks like Frank, and we're like, no way. And then he starts to speak, only to find out that he's English. So now he speaks with an English accent, but you see Frank Sinatra, and you... So in the background, as all this is going on, I'm just saying whatever it is that I say. I try not to even filter myself, okay? And most of the time it works. Sometimes it does get me in trouble, as you well know. And the next day, we finish the filming up, and we're out on Hollywood Boulevard. And at the end of the day, we need one more shot, okay? And the Filipino director comes over and he says, I want to talk to you about where we should set up the last shot. I said, perfect. And there was a park bench, not a park bench, but a bench for the buses about as long as your whole thing here, right? He and I were down here trying to figure out where the last shot should be. The two Italian guys and their three friends from Italy that came over were down here, and they were trying to determine where we were going to take this shot and how it was to be done. We were speaking over here like two Americans. They were speaking over here like five Italians. So as the tourists came by and they got closer to them, they would veer off and away from them because they were telling each other what was going on and what was going to, and they thought a fight was going to break out, right? So anyhow, we end up We end up going with their suggestion. We move 2 blocks away. We take the last shot. They all come over and say, "Thank you very much for being part of the." I said, "No, thanks for having me. It was really great." And we look down, and whose star are we standing on? Frank Sinatra. The serendipity of this is not Frank Sinatra. The serendipity is that like 3 weeks later, I get an email from the Filipino director who says, "I want to know more about that book you told me about." And I barely mentioned anything other than the spirit of the book. So you never know how it plays itself out, and we all have stories like that, I'm sure.
You want to talk now? All right, you can talk next, since I'm moderating this.
We did not rehearse this.
Go on.
Well, I just want to kind of bring the discussion into a little focus with one topic, and that is nowhere in the Urantia book are we asked to promulgate the Urantia book. And so we're told that we're heading towards light and life. We're told that evolution and progress are extremely important if we're to avoid cultural disaster. And so my question is, if it's not the Urantia book that is going to save humanity, and it isn't, what is?
The truth's in the Urantia book, and the experiences that we can have when we read this epical revelation. It may not be possible to convince people right away to start reading it. It's a big book, and people don't like that much complexity, except for some of us. But we can act and live those truths. We can found our family on those truths. And that ought to attract people, and we'll multiply.
When you said that ought to attract people, we are told, we're not just out of the Urantia book, but we're told in many venues. Someone 2,000 years ago or so said, "If I am lifted up, I will draw all men to myself." Now, who's that? And the ministries that we count on, and first of all, humanity doesn't need saving. The Supreme Being is doing just fine, thank you very much. And will progress, and the question is, are we going to be along for the ride? But the point I was trying to make is that it is by our lives, the way we live our lives, the progress we make in becoming more subservient to our Heavenly Father, to our Divine Mother, more cooperative with the heavenly ministries. These ministries are here for everybody, not just people who read the Urantia book. The Spirit of Truth is alive and well. The Universe Mother Spirit is the very basis of our consciousness. It's our ability to construct a rational thought. God has not left his work up to us. We're getting a glimpse of what's out there. We've been given this amazing picture of reality and progress and destiny. Remember what it says about religion. Religion illuminates destiny. And so these ministries that we have, thought adjusters, are already in every normal human mind on the planet. So what's really important is that we develop and live our faith as Jesus lived his faith as a man, as the Son of Man.
The only problem is I don't hear much in the way of ritual, symbolism, tenets, flexibility, and all of that, of course. it's not enough, I don't think. It's not enough. It's not enough just for us to say, well, the Spirit of Truth is doing its job, the Supreme Being is doing its job. What else is there for me to do, us to do? You know, we'll just do it all ad hoc. Just do it, you know, when the moment comes to you. Well, we've been doing that. We've been doing that. And I used to come to these meetings when there were 50.
I'm not sure it's the numbers that count, but the quality of the numbers that might be more important. But my grandmother, who was a devout Catholic, and that we had some disagreements over Jesus dying on the cross and so forth, but we had the deepest discussions. And she had a ritual that she passed on to me that I do. And I try to get as many other people to do it because it's really good. You do it now too. And it's a simple one. What she said is, during the day, she makes it a point to find something that is really beautiful or true or good. She goes, it could be something that she read in a magazine that was a fact that just seemed infutable to her, or it could be the smile on a child. But she says you have to actively search for it. Now the next part of it is when she goes to bed. She'd lay down and she would share this with God. She would share this one thing that she observed, and she would just think about it and ponder it and go to sleep. And she goes, and the next day I'm getting up looking for the next one. And I found that that's a ritual. Does it change the world? I think it does. It makes these small types of changes in us. And when we're looking to have change out there, it's so much easier if I can just work on you, Kermit, and change you. It's a lot more work if I am changing myself inch by inch. It's a cinch. If I try to take these great big huge leaps, it becomes too much. So we're looking for symbolism and philosophy within this movement, or within whatever this movement is trying to help the world. And to me, that would be one of them. Service is just done as we go by. A thing that you were stating that I'd like to bring up is that we do need to plan. There's nothing wrong with plans. It's when our plans necessitate an outcome that we demand. Instead of taking steps and seeing what comes out of it. When we destine it in the future, how it's going to be, we've pretty much crystallized it, and we've taken away the spirit of what it can be. So I go into lots of different things with an idea of what I'd like, always ready to make a change in what that true outcome will be, because it rarely comes out the way that I initially thought. And it's usually much better.
I wondered what I would be doing up here today other than driving our distinguished guest up. My name's Dick Prince. I live in San Diego, and I'm a longtime friend of Phil's. But listening to all this, I think what I'm going to do is channel a founder of FUSLA, Julia Fenderson, who was a dear friend of mine for many years, and Kermit and I spoke at her memorial service, in fact, many years ago in a place not too far from here. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things that Julia would probably say if she were here. She read me, and you read this. You've seen this letter, the one Christie Center, it's in Meredith's book, I think, where it was revealed that the book was put on this world 1,000 years before its time, to allow for translations into many tongues and to allow for development of teachers and leaders, and that it was actually destined for an age beyond this one, when mankind had learned to live together and the spirit of brotherhood was in full bloom. And I think that we can certainly say you listed many of the countries which are disaster zones, where people are being slaughtered left and right in God's name. I can only imagine him pulling Mohammed up by the hair and say, "What did you tell those people?" anyways, the that 1,000 years, we're early into that. And I would, even as I would encourage people to be active and want to move forward, Julie also told us a story about when they had a communication in the early days, letting them know that the initial request from the Midwayers to do the Urantia book was made about 900 AD, as you reckon time. And the contact commissioner was telling Julia this story. Her eyes and the others in the room got big, and they asked, "What took you so long?" And there was a long pause. You remember this story. You remember it. And the response came back after a while, "Oh, we see what you mean." 1,100 years was nothing to these guys. So I'm certainly not suggesting that we sit back and wait for the spiritually developed coconut to fall from the tree. But at the same time, those that are really in charge of this thing are working on an altogether different time frame from that which we are.
Oh, I guess it's working. My experience with the Urantia Society has really been a family one. Because in 1986, my first husband, who died of cancer, was looking for a job. He was having a lot of health problems, and we would go to the library, and he would look through the want ads in the newspapers, and I would look at all the wonderful books about Jesus in heaven and all of the marvelous things that they would have there. And in the reference department, they had the Urantia book. And I'd never ever seen it before at that time in the library. So I would read the book while my husband would look for want ads. I went home because I couldn't take it with me. It was a reference book. And I told my father, I told him, "Oh, I've found just the book that you would love." And he says, "I gotta have that book." So I told him a little bit about what was in it and what I'd been reading about. So my first husband went and bought him the book. They were all in the bookstores, and he started reading it. About a month later, my mother came to me, and she said, "You know, there's really a problem with your father. He won't share." And so we went out and we bought another book, and it was for my mother. So our experience is a family experience. My mother, after my father died, came to live with us for 12 years, and every day she would have the book right by her bed on the nightstand, and she would read it every night. And my father did too before he passed away. My first husband read the book. Again, this was a family experience. I have two sons from my first marriage, and they're both college professors now, but they both read the book. And now, with my new husband, Michael, he is reading the book, and I've given the book to my 3 new children, Elena, who's 17, Daniel is 13, and Alex is 8. And Alex, at night, our family experience is this. Alex will sit up in bed, and we'll talk about God, and we'll read poems or prayers, but once in a while, Alex will write a prayer himself. And because he knows about the Urantia book, his last prayer he wrote was called "The Infinite Beyond." And it was very beautiful, and I've started sharing his prayers with our family members that we write to. So my experience has been a family one, and it's going on because my daughter, who is 17, now we have new neighbors. And as a family, she's introducing the Urantia book to all of the children that are in that family. There's 4 children in that family, 3 teenagers, and the little girl is in Alex's class at school. And the mother came over to me and said, "Well, Lena's sharing all this stuff with us." She says, "I want to know too," she says. So she looked up in the internet, and then she said, "Do you think that maybe you could see if you have a book on your shelf for me?" and I gave her a book, and it was just last week. So the experience is family, but then the families take it further, hopefully, along.
Say something in the meantime here, because I heard some things that I thought fell into the right category, and I wanted to repeat them. One you said was how your mother, your grandmother, would find something beautiful, true, something that moved her through the day, and she would keep track of that until later at night, and she would remember it and share it with God. Okay, that's the kind of thing that I think I'm talking about, and we ought to probably collect those because it's something good that anybody could do. It's uplifting, it's faithful, it's a good thing. And so that's the kind of practice, ritual. And Diane, I was sort of trying to synthesize what you were saying in terms that it would be, and maybe it was writing a poem or writing about, but that's the kind of thing I would like to hear. Something that you do regularly, but it's different every time, and it's in this vein.
All right, well, thanks, Phil. By the way, as education chair, I am very, very proud that Phil is here. I think we should give him another hand. Thank you, Phil, so much for being here. This is kind of my most recent dream for the Urantia movement. I guess we've kind of coined it Urantia movement for the time being.
It's an old term.
Yeah.
Like, have we evolved? I think we should, but that's what we were, and that's what we used to call it, the Urantia movement.
Oh, okay. Well, forgive me, I'm relatively new at this. But it's one of my recent dreams come true is to have you with us because I feel that, of course, you have the East Coast, you have New York and Chicago, you have the West Coast, which is Los Angeles. And these areas, these centers of the United States, maybe of the world, are the centers that initiate the new ideas, for the most part. Other places do, but I mean, I see these as centers that move humanity forward with progressive ideas. So this was kind of a dream in that we have Phil here, who's very, very. I mean, you've got the logical, you've got the emotional, you've got the aesthetical, you've got a lot working for you with your ministry or whatever you want to call it. Is leading us and helping us, the most progressive and brilliant minds in the country, we being in Los Angeles. I would like for UBLA, as education chair and as a member of the Urantia movement, I would like UBLA to be one of those bodies, one of those entities that moves the consciousness of the United States and the world further in this, that in order for the movement to continue growing, that we become the new cult. And we model the cult on the family, as in your presentation, right? I see one child here. There's one child, okay? I see one child. I don't see any other children. I'm sure that most everyone in the Urantia movement has children and grandchildren that they have little rituals with. But I would like to see us become a cult of people who are a family that give that emotional, fulfill the emotional need, but that also understand what the Urantia book teaches, that we are individuals that have an individual relationship with God. And I think that is and here's our family member now. And that's the dichotomy that we face in the Urantia movement, because the book says we have an individual relationship with God, but at the same time, We are part of a religious organization. We are part of a social structure that results from the revelation. So I would like for us to be the new cult that identifies an individualism but yet provides a nurturing structure as a family does. Whatever rituals we have to develop, whatever social structures, whatever support structures we have to develop, we can think about that. But this is the group that can do it. And so, Phil, I'm so happy to have you here for us to think about how UBLA can be a driving force for change in the within UBLA, within the Fellowship Foundation and UAI groups, the country and the world. And I think we can do it. I think we can.
I'd like to see or hear more of more of those ideas that might be coming into your minds in view of the presentation and all of these references. What do you do that might fall into the category of something that could be repeated by the rest of us, maybe either as a group or individually? We seem to be going in order, but we can jump. No, please.
This live? It is.
I mean, if you've got an answer that speaks to that question.
I teach call it a preventive medicine program called Dian Qigong. Qi in the Asian Chinese medicine is the energy that flows through our body and keeps us healthy or not healthy. And one of the practices that I teach my students are two actually. One is a walking meditation. We all pray, a lot of us meditate, but this is an active thing that you walk around at a slow speed or a fast speed, but with each step you take, you recall something that you are thankful for. Give it a try with all the onslaught and the negative stuff that we are bombarded with every day. Give it a try the first time to come up with 10 things that you are thankful for without any negative coming in. It's a chore. If you do this for 1 week, I can guarantee a change in your attitude and viewpoint. Another one from the same Asian practice, and this is called a tree qigong, where you actually, who mentioned I was talking about, you become a tree hugger. And if you go stand by a tree and you put both hands out and you touch the tree and you kind of inhale, but as you inhale, you open up a point at the top of the head is called the byway or the 1,000 meeting point. And what you do is you start pulling in like a big vacuum of all the energy, the positive thoughts from the universe, from God, and everything that is good and positive. As you touch the tree, you turn your hands into a magnet and you pull in the energy from the earth, which has been filtered up through the ground and through the tree where it becomes pure, and you bring that into the heart. Then you exhale and you take all of the negative energy that you have and you bring it down and run it down through the bottom of your foot into the ground, and you get rid of all the negative and all the junk that you carry, that we all carry once in a while with us. Do this 3 times, and it'd be interesting to hear what results you experience from that. There's a couple of active things that I know from my practice and from literally hundreds of students now that I've taught this to, can make a renowned change in your viewpoint. And once that viewpoint is open, I think you'll be amazed at how many people walk up to you and ask you questions instead of us having to put stuff up on billboards.
Attaboy, Phil. I have two practices that I typically don't do every single day, but definitely have a mind attentiveness to attempting to do these every single day. One of them is centering prayer, a form of meditation where, it's a form of self-forgetfulness where I try to do it same time daily, but it's a practice, it's a faith-based practice that allows me to open myself up to both God's presence and action within. And it is a personal relationship building ritual that I have with the Father that I definitely adore and feel the benefits of daily. Second one that I do that's very easy and seems to get pretty popular is on the way to work and usually on the way home from work, I'll just hold my peace sign out the window. Now, I read a study once where they measured the amount of serotonin level in people that received an act of service. And they measured that. Then they also measured the serotonin level within a person who gave that act of service. And oddly enough, they were the exact same level. Then the third thing they did was they measured the serotonin level of somebody who witnessed that exchange of service between two. And they also had the exact same serotonin level increased in their system. So, I mean, like the small things that we do, even by being witnessed by others, has a reverberating effect on our immediate circles, our circles of influence. Several times throughout the day, I'll sometimes just driving to work, and I'm like, I'm not in the mood to put my fingers out the window. It's cold, one reason or another, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to force myself. And so I'll do it, and you'll be surprised. The first time somebody flashes their lights or honks their horn and sticks their hand out the window too, it's an amazing feeling. You're like, okay, they got it, I got it, everybody's getting it. And then you'll see other people do it, and it's almost like the second one person reacts, a cluster will open. And then there'll be about 4 or 5 cars of people holding their peace sign out the window. And those days don't happen always, but they're special when they do happen. And it's a moment that you're going to share that brief moment of love, uplift, and they're going to share that when they go with their circle of influence as well. So, I mean, those small little practices that I think really have a huge, huge effect on people. And another one that I did was I created business cards that just say, thank you for your service, thank you for dedicating your life to proving that love is the greatest thing that exists. And the moment you give that to someone, I always say this, like, I give these out to great people. Thank you for holding that door open for that lady. I seen you do that. The moment they read it and they recognize what it is, they well up with gratitude. And it's something very simple, very cost-effective, very efficient. And someone like myself with the personality that it's sometimes really hard to contain, it gives me a little bit of a reaction as well. I feel gratified by doing something that small. And I know the person receiving it feels it as well. So those are a couple things that I have in my daily practice.
I like that. I just wanted to repeat it. What you're saying is that we could have some kind of a sign. I mean, we know, we know the victory sign, and then we know, the Vulcan sign, live long and prosper. If you can play the piano, you can't do it with that one hand, but anyway, you probably could do it with the other one. And then we probably, I don't know, what do we do? Come up with a circle symbol or something? Something that, we communicate goodwill. So I like that, communicate goodwill, and we could probably come up with something that's more Urantian, but, who's next? 3 circles, yeah, 3 circles something or other. Yeah, 3 circles, right. I like that. Right, that's it, good. See, it's got to be, evolve naturally. It can't be just constructed. Did you just think of that? See, there it is in the moment.
that I have an action step that we could consider. Everybody in this room, in the last week, how many of you have written an email? Okay, let me ask it a different way. How many in this room have not written an email? There's a couple of you that no emails. But the rest of us, the majority of us do. When we write emails, I have noticed how easily it is to take it out of context. We can make it as I have to call it a philosophy that we adhere to, a value that we say, we make each of these emails to the positive. Now, I'm part of a committee in the fellowship writing policies and procedures. It's overall what you'd consider a very, very boring committee to chair. Except for we have one thing about it that makes it the most exciting committee I've ever participated on, and that's mainly because of Buck Weimer. And Buck, to be a part of the group, he said, I'll devote time with you, Robert, but you got to do one thing for me, and that's that every policy that we write has to be done in the positive. There can be no negative, even on policies that are basically thou shalt not and those types of things. And we have been, it's an incredible experience. You can do it. We can do it. Now, I'm saying that because as I have been working with Buck, I've noticed my emails and others' emails of how easy it is to get a little of the negative in there and how easy it is to change it once you become aware of it. But now the real action step is there's blogs that we can get on. I don't know how many of you are on the Friends of the Urantia book, but it's growing rapidly. For the most part, it's positive. People are sharing these positive things, and one of the things I'm going to do is share something that I have seen that is true, beautiful, or good in my own experience from the day before and just share it. The thing I didn't add for my grandmother is that once every couple weeks we would write each other, because she didn't do email, we would write a physical letter and we would share some of the highlights. So if there was a highlight or two, I probably should pull some of those out and share that, because they're beautiful and they're simple. There's nothing complicated about them, but they instantly do what you're saying. Just by hearing this act or seeing through her eyes the goodness gave me a certain type of a feeling. Well, we can do that as a community. It doesn't take that much extra time for us to do, and it's a game changer. I mean, if we got into the habit, in 5 years from now, I bet you we attract a whole lot more people that want to be a part of that group. I'm using the Friends of the Urantia Book Fellowship to the best of my ability. I'm one of the administrators. Now, we do get the negatives. And as administrator, I'm going in there as quickly as possible and just deleting it. I'm not taking the person out, I'm just deleting that negative political bent or whatever it is where somebody's ranting, right? But there's so many things of people sharing something really beautiful, like the thing you shared with everybody today or yesterday, the 96-year-old, that was beautiful. I mean, that brings tears to your eyes, and it made you feel like life has so much value. I did put that up on Friends for the Urantia book. It's things like that that we can do, and then if we want to, and I'm saying we do this, but if we want to, we brand it. We say from UBLA or part of UBLA so that people realize that this is what this group is about. Because right now people don't know. We read the Urantia book, and the vast majority of people don't know what that is, but they would know what this stuff is. Then they might become interested in why would they do such things.
Just real quick, I don't want to get too windy on this. During the break, I was talking with Richard Prince, and years ago, my parents lived in Chicago, and we moved out here to California in '58. But in the early '50s, back in Chicago, my parents were a part of something that was called the Christian Family Movement. It was referred to as CFM. It was basically organized through the Catholic Church, and there may even still be CFM groups today. And and I know that they were even doing a CFM over in Holy Family when we were a part of that group years ago. But CFM has a really good format, and we could have something called the UFM, or the Urantia Family Movement, which could be modeled somewhat on that. I don't know exactly where that idea would go, but I know that it's a catchy phrase, and I know that it involves some kind of home study. I know that it involves observing a situation, making an evaluation or judgment about that situation, then taking an action about that situation in a social context and actually doing something. Religion doesn't always just think, it actually does. People actually do something. A lot of times we act as individuals when we do that. We can be a member of a political or social group, but individually, it's a good way to at least think about how we can take this family concept, and that's something similar to what you were talking about, Diane, and put it into a formula of some sort for the future, and set the goal for 50 years, or not tomorrow, but that evolving at a concept within the Urantia movement that new families or young people with families have a place or a construct or a situation or a circumstance that they can grow with or that will help them as they grow and develop their families and teach them at home and do whatever else based upon what you were talking about, Phil. So I'm going to just throw UFM, the Urantia Family Movement, out there as a meme, as a way in which we can at least think about how the fellowship, the foundation, the International Society can just use that construct somehow and come up with a way in which we bring about the UFM eventually. Just an idea.
That I said I was going to bring up. I'll get it up and then you can comment, or you can comment.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make a mention that, of course, most of you cannot start a new family right now, right? but look at this, though. Here I was, 63 years old, and I was given a baby. A baby. This was 7 years ago. 3 children, actually. And a 10-year-old girl, a little boy 6, and a baby. You can do that. You could maybe find some member of your family or someone to mentor a little bit. But age is not going to limit you necessarily. I was 63 before I got my first baby, after having 2 children that now are 46 and 44. They're both college teachers. And I got a new family at this age. So you can take a grandchild, you could adopt a child. I know another mother that I know very well. She's the same age as I am, and she filled out the forms and they gave her a baby. And to take young people and to bring them up into this glorious new society would certainly be a thing that maybe you think, oh, I could never do that. Well, I didn't think I could either. And then I got 3 on my doorstep at retirement age. So don't forget, no matter how old you are, there might be some child that could benefit from your talking to them, helping them.
So do you want to go over these, Kermit?
Well,
I can move it.
I'm not certain that it really fits.
Well, there were some comments here, and maybe we can focus on them.
What we're talking about are the comments that came in on the membership survey. When you do a survey, you always leave room for other expression on items that you haven't asked about, or other expressions on items you haven't asked about but didn't give an opportunity for a particular response.
Okay, wait, hey, Phil,
Just a second.
you're going to stay there. Use that mic and give that mic to Kermit, okay? Please.
Good idea. these were some of these comments that you sent to me, and well, I saw my own in here somewhere.
Anyone who took the survey and added a comment should be able to find their comments here, because I think we used them all, didn't we?
So, you know, I don't know, should we read these? Let's see.
Well, you know, what we were trying to get at with this survey was really what do people want to come to a UBLA event for, and what are their reflections on why they come or why they don't come, what works and what doesn't work. And so we got a smattering of responses,
Here's a comment that says, hopefully UBLA does not try to become a church and does create opportunities to share our relationships and understanding of God, our cosmos, and the depth of the teachings in the Urantia book. Well, why couldn't there be a church to do that? I'm not sure what it means to be a church or not be a church, but I know I've been, you know, I was raised Catholic and stopped practicing that religion about age 23. But there are some comments in here. Some people who say, you know, rather not pay $15 for a catered meal. This fellow is going to appear on the 23rd, I hear.
Well, you know, we're faced with any large group. We're not that large, actually, but with any group made up of individuals, and particularly this group, there's individualistic tendencies that might be overemphasized. And, you know, the question of unity without uniformity is a significant challenge, to find things that will unify a group of diverse individuals, and yet well, to do that and to have people come to join together for whatever activity or whatever event is going on. So it's a significant problem, and one of the things you always have to be on guard against is certain groups of factions, and we've got plenty of those in this so-called movement. That's another point I was going to bring up. This is anything but a unified movement. We've got teaching mission, we've got UAI Foundation Fellowship polarities, we've got all kinds of some of these are very bitter conflicts that go very deep. Dick is nodding, and he knows what it took to get that Spanish translation done. And there are still significant segments. So how can we design a paradigm or evolve a paradigm that respects individual differences and unifies higher callings, higher sentiments?
Hi. I just wanted to say we were reading about and learning about cults and what kind of cults are good and what we should do, which has worked with perhaps some of the other cults in the past. One of the things that has really helped is music. I think that the Urantia movement, so-called, needs a theme song, or 2 or 3 or 4 theme songs. And there's several musicians, I'm sure, here, and somebody needs to think of some words. Poetry, supposedly, put to music would be great. And there are certain things that all of these different factions of the Urantia movement could still agree upon, and they could be part of a theme song. Then every time we get together, we could sing a song or 2. And also imagery, artwork. The 3 circles, the 3 concentric circles, is one of our images that we all sort of have in common, which comes from the Urantia book. Perhaps there's other kind of images and symbols that we could pull out and evolve. And that's just what I have to say. Okay?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to piggyback on that. The IC14 is coming up in July in Massachusetts, the triennial conference. And they have developed some models, and again, I'm pretty new at this, so I'm not familiar with past conferences, international conferences, but they are having some tracks. They're having a group of lectures in tracks. And they're developing some models which I think kind of go along with that, Donna, that are pretty positive. We have a choir. I'll be conducting the choir, and we'll have a lot of different musicians that have written music. We have a theme song, by the way, for the conference, Grow Godward. But they're including not only study the book, hold on, buddy, hold on. Not only study the book and outreach, but they also have living the teachings. You talked about that quite a bit, Phil, that we live the teachings irrespective of our religious beliefs or organizations to which we belong, but also a family unit. There's a family unit in IC14 where the children have activities and they're going to be more involved, and with the youth as well. The conference chair is Angie Thurston, who's one of the one of the members of the Yaya committee. Oh, Youth and Young Adult Committee, ages like 26 to... Yeah, Youth and Young Adult. So I think if we want to look to them for some models, I don't know if there's been family things in the past or lived the teachings in the past, but I think we could look, if you go to the information site for IC14, you can see some of the programs they have. And I think it seems to me like they're becoming kind of forerunners in maybe a new way to approach conferences, and maybe a new way to approach how we gather as an organization to worship, to sing, to come together in fellowship and socialization. So just wanted to piggyback on that.
If I could ask, how many people here how many are going to the IC14? It's in Amherst, Mass. We have 3. Are you going, Phil, or no? Yeah. So a few. We've got a few, but not a lot. It's on the East Coast this year, and that's, of course, a travel for us.
I wanted to repeat something I heard that was important, and that is music, because it does fulfill that emotional requirement. I was at church today. I even sang. I'm in the choir, so, but anyway, they gave me a little solo. And it was moving, both to me and everybody else. That is certainly something we could do and come up with some music that is more characteristic of the Urantia revelation and what the truths are there. And then we could sing it together, and that would provide us with some of that emotion, because music is great for that.
I am Alexander.
Stand up over here. Tell them you're going to IC14.
I am going to IC14.
Yes, and you're going to say a prayer.
I'm going to say a prayer right now.
Let me tell them why. Christina Seaborn is in charge of one of the tracks, and she called me long distance to invite me to do the prayer to open the conference at IC14. And I'll be opening the conference. She gave me my choice. And you talk about music. I was listening to my CD, and that's when I meditate. And the music inspires me, and it makes me filled with joy. And so I told her, oh, joy, of course, it must be joy. And standing at my side for opening the conference at IC14 will be Alex. Well, he's going to try. He's going to be there and hopefully stand by Mommy as I do the prayer. So he's going to be a part of that conference and a part of opening it up.
All right. Put your seatbelts back on.
Okay. Okay. The Urantia book was a book that has spiritual things that do lots. And who made it now. God could make anything, So he had to make this world a little greater for our universe.
All right. Thank you.
Who wants to speak again, or hasn't spoken yet?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. Listen, this is just for me. This is my point of view, and everybody's got a point of view. And we're here because we all are touched by the Spirit of God that has led us to this book, this revelation, that has all changed our lives. And I kind of think that the Urantia book can change mankind, but mankind doesn't need the Urantia book to change. The book tells us that we're to dedicate ourselves to showing that love is the greatest thing in the universe. So that's the first thing I want to do, and that's the first thing I want to encourage others to do. They also mention truth, beauty, and goodness in big ways. So if we live our life with that spirit in mind, we live in a huge family. It's a worldwide family. Everything we do, say, right becomes part of the dialogue. So there's nothing special about this group any more than God is a respecter of persons. But within the group, we're here to learn to develop that spirit, that love, that sharing. And that's what we're trying to do. A lot of you guys have been the force behind the organization of the groups within the groups of the movement itself. I kind of ride the spirit end of things mostly. But I want us to lead with our hearts, with our love first. People will then come to you and ask you, where did you get that knowledge or that information or that feeling or that whatever it is that you're displaying? And the internet now has shrunk the world so quickly, so vastly, so, right? That every day people are out there putting and sharing music, poetry, writings, feelings. It's all out there. It's happening right in front of us. And it's happening at such a pace that I think a lot of us don't even see it. Remember when Rodin talked about the art of living, and it might have to be remastered in less time, perhaps every generation, if we became too rapid in our development? And that commercial the other day where they have Verizon TV, wireless, you move it anywhere, and you got the 14 and 15-year-olds that are looking at the 7 and 8-year-olds going, boy, when I was young, in my time. So now it's every half generation. It's not even a generation. So fear not that this revelation will be stopped. There's nothing that's going to stop it. We will just continue to love and do our best, and I thank everybody for all the effort that they put in to this group and throughout the country with this movement. That's my bottom line. Thank you.
Well, let me ask this question. How many people here would like to see, or not, more religious kinds of activities in our groups? Some people don't even want to have prayer, and other people would like to have more of a something a little more like a Christian ritual, but obviously something very different. I'd like to hear some of these people say something about that. Well, I'm talking about religious practices that are, ceremonies that we could perform together.
A lot of us came from religious family of origins. Mine is Catholic. People maybe Judaism, Episcopalian, Buddhism. The fact of the matter is that maybe it didn't work for us. I mean, Catholicism didn't work for me, and one of the reasons that I became a lost soul was because Catholicism didn't work for me, and the reasons it didn't work for me is the mechanics of Catholicism weren't really applicable to my life. There was things in there was a lot of don'ts going on that I was taught that I wanted to do. And these do's were, I found out, didn't really lead me in a proper direction. And later on in life, I became connected up with another blue book, which introduced me to the idea of sobriety. And sobriety, in turn, kept me going for 14 years. And here I am today with a wonderful group of people that I wouldn't have been with had I not have gotten sober first. No big deal. God does these things. I don't do them. And one of the big things about God is that if you surrender to God's will work through you. But if you work against God's will, chances are nothing's going to happen. And what I really wanted to say is that this is the fifth epical revelation. This isn't the first, second, third, fourth. This is the fifth. And the first four had some really rocky roads, as we all know who have read the Urantia book. And my time with the Urantia book has been most fruitful at study groups. Study groups, Robert Burns study groups I used to attend on a regular basis, and Larry's I try to on a regular basis.
Larry's and Donna's.
Larry, I'm sorry. I always seem, I am a misogynist. I admit it. I see it as a man's world, and yeah, Donna and Larry's, yeah. Thank you. Now I feel better. But I guess my emphasis here is that religions are good for people who need religions. I feel that people that read the Urantia book maybe had difficulties with religions. And because of that, they come here because they feel they can share and they can hear and they can find things about life here that they can't in a religion. The Urantia book movement has always been a changing phenomenon for me. And every time I come to one of these get-togethers, it's different. It could be the same people, but there's different ideas expressed. And because of that, I feel compelled. This needs to be an attraction, not a promotion. If people can become attracted to this thing and come here because of, well, maybe YouTube might say, hey, look at those people. There's an interesting group of people. Listen, look at what they're talking about. That's amazing. And because of that, maybe we'll get some more people here. And maybe we'll get some more people at some study groups. But the important thing of the Urantia book is the book itself. It's the fifth epical revelation. Many people don't know what the other four were. I mean, the first was Planetary Prince, the second was Adam and Eve, Melchizedek, Jesus of Nazareth, and now we have this. And the other five the four, am I running out of time here? Oh, you raised your arm. I guess I say, like, time for a commercial. But I am just very amazed and just inspired by the fact that we can all get together here on a pretty regular basis, a core group of people that could maybe spread the word. I'm going to finish it with this. Where I work, one of the guys I work with came to me one day and he says he read this wonderful science fiction book about people went back in time and they met Jesus. And it was like they were astronauts or something. I said, is that J.J. Benitez? And he goes, I don't know, it was something like that. So what I did is I researched on the internet and I found a whole article about it. I think Saskia put it together about J.J. Benitez and its connection to the Urantia book. And then I printed it on my printer, gave it to him, and he went, Urantia book? I went, yeah, the Urantia book. That's J.J. Benitez read that, and then he wrote this science fiction. And a lot of people are reading it, but you guys didn't know that has to do with the Urantia book. So anyhow, he went on eBay, he found a Spanish version of it, and he bought it. So, I mean, that was just a coincidence. I mean, literally just a snap coincidence in the day that the Urantia book is being spread out. But it isn't just the Urantia book. It's an ongoing process. There's going to be a sixth epical revelation and maybe a seventh. I don't know. I really don't know. But my concern is to try to do God's will today, and that's it. Just try to live my life. Every morning I say 4 prayers, and also I'm going to leave with one more thing. Leonard Cohen wrote this beautiful song. It's called Suzanne. And Jesus was a sailor when he walked across the water. He spent a long time watching from a lonely wooden tower. And when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men shall be sailors that until the sea shall free them.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to piggyback on the YouTube thing. I want you all to know, I've been taking videotapes now for almost 2 years, and some of them have ended up on the website. And tomorrow, I begin the process of taking all of the videotapes and turning them into YouTube.
There you go. That's very important.
Well, I've heard a lot of good things here today in terms of what we were trying to do. And who's got some more comments? Are we going to finish at 6?
I'll have just a positive comment.
Okay.
And that's that the one thing that we can always do leaving a meeting like this is to keep looking at those positive things that we can do, not what we aren't doing. I mean, we can run stuff through our head, and it's a choice to have vision of what could be, and it's a choice to criticize even ourselves. We're most critical with ourselves, and then we're critical with others, and then we're critical with organizations. That's our choice. We can do that. I'm going to encourage that we do the first one, that we stay with the visions of what could be and what we could do, and find ways then that we begin doing it.
Well, I want to ask everybody to raise their hands and start our new symbol of our 3 concentric circles.
I think you have to use 3 fingers to make 3 circles.
Well, no, 3 fingers and a circle, 3 circles. And if we put our eye up to it, we can make 3 circles that way too.
We'll piggyback on what Dave Tucker said. We'll all drive home with these hanging out the window.
All right.
Is it true if you look through the 3 concentric circles that you can see infinity? Is that true?
That's true. Yes, that's true. I have to say, I was with Dave in Las Vegas, Nevada, when he inveigled everyone in the car to do what he asked. And I don't do it anymore, but it was pretty remarkable. We got a lot of flashing lights. We got a lot of cars going by. It was a lot of, it was an up thing. It was an up thing. And so... Exactly. So...
so every time we do this, somebody's going to say, what's that mean?
And then what and then what we do is we put up on the internet what this means. The universality, eternality, and infinity of the Holy Trinity. So anyway, we're at 6, straight up. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to particularly thank Phil for putting together his presentation. I want to thank Michael for getting Phil to do this. And I want to thank all of you for coming. And next time, bring a friend. And keep your eyes open for, we're putting our schedule together.
The little kitties, don't forget the little kids.
Don't forget the kids. Right, don't forget the kids. Pretty soon, you're going to have a program for the kids. So,
Working with a couple of people on that, so in the fellowship.
Great, great.
We've got children's literature and like a UFM, some developing some children's programs with some other individuals. It's just a very, very preliminary.
So, go out and love one another. Thank you all.